All right, let's look at a little bit more about how we can animate in direct physics. This is what we did last time, just clicking my middle wheel in to rotate. What I'm going to do is just make a new scene, just a general scene here. Make sure to save your current scene. Let's go ahead and just delete this cube, just hitting delete there. If you're on a Mac, I don't know if the delete key works, so you can just hit X and then select delete. I'm going to hit Shift and A, and I'm going to go to Mesh, and I'm going to create a plane. Hit the S key a little bit out here to scale this up. Kind of frame my view a little bit better here. All right, let's go ahead and make a cube here that's going to kind of represent the tower that we're using. Then I'm going to hit G, and I'm going to hit Z and move this above. Then I'm going to hit Shift D to duplicate. Then G and Z and move this up. And then left click and then should hit Shift R a bunch. Go ahead and select all of these. And I want to do add, let's see, or object rather. I want to do physics, or rigid body rather, add active, and then this one is just going to be object, rigid body, add passive. I'm going to hit spacebar to play that. You can see that looks good. All right, so I'm going to hit Shift A again, go to mesh, and then sphere, UV sphere here. And you can see it's buried down there. I'm just kind of clicking in the wheel of my mouse. Then I'm going to hit G and just move it up here. You can see it's on the same, I'm going to hit N here, same sort of axis as this. So you can see X is this axis here. So I'm going to zero that out so that I know that it's lined up this way with my cube. And then Y and Z is fine. I can hit S to scale that down. And then if we go in here, we can add rigid body physics. We want it to be active. So if I hit spacebar, you can see that falls to the ground. But what I want to do is add some physics behind this so that it shoots towards my cubes here. All right, so what's pretty cool about this is instead of it just falling now, if I check on animated, now it is an animated physics object. So if I hit spacebar here, you can see it doesn't move. But we have a yellow line dot here. If I expand summary here, and this is indicating that it's been keyed. So what I can do here is I can hit I in my scene, and that'll set a key. Or I can click this button here, and then around frame 60, I can hit Shift spacebar and select move. And that's if you have a small screen and you want to get rid of this, you can just hit Shift spacebar. It'll bring up all this stuff. I think T hides that. Yeah, T does. So it's up to you depending on how big your screen is. And if I move it like this, sorry, my mouse, I hope it's not going. It's like a pretty expensive mouse. Now when I circle back, you can see if I hit spacebar, boom, forms a projectile. Kind of cool. So that's like an animated physics object. Now, something you probably noticed is it looks kind of fake. Like there, it looks real, but then all of a sudden it's just floating. So something I can do is around frame 30 is I can just set a key here to animate it, and then 31, I can just turn it off, and then I could set a key. See that? So now when I press the space bar, it'll go through, boom, then it turns off, and it just kind of sits there. And if you want, you can kind of shift these forward a little bit. And then we could try again. Oops. It looks like I mixed them. I kind of, there we go. Then boom, now it falls like a real physics object. So that's kind of cool. So just a different way of, you know, connecting both animated with the actual physics component. Something else I want to do is click here and then go to, let's see, random for color so that, you know, we get some really good, interesting color values. Something like this. Now say this is kind of boring for you, right? Where we hit this, it's just going too slow. Well, it also works with time, right? So this is our timeline, and there's 30 frames a second, right? So if I select this sphere and I'm like, you know what? I want this to happen in under a second here. So I can move this and I can move it to frame 30. Because remember, this is the final key that ends up over here. Boom, you could see that it has a lot, it moves a lot quicker, right? So it's got a lot of that, boom. So we could actually move this even over here before that turns off. Remember, you always have to hit spacebar over there, and it gives us a lot more force. It's just kind of cool physics stuff. It's just pretty amazing that people get paid for this. I mean, you could even go crazier where you're like, you know what, I want it to be under a second. See how that even goes further? Which is kind of nice. Because this timeline, again, is all based on time. Now, I think, let's double check if it is 24 frames. So if I click on, I think my printer here, yeah, it's 24 frames, not 30. I had initially said 30 frames a second. And this deals with how many frames it's going to render later. So you can see when I made it 30, it's even quicker. Boom. It's kind of cool. Let's move this out just a little bit. And I like seeing it bounce. So kind of good stuff going on there. All right, so what do I want you to do? I want you to give it a shot where you select all of these different cubes here. I'm holding shift to select. And I want you to make like a wall. And then I want you to make 3 projectiles shooting at the wall at different speeds. Go ahead and pause the video and give that a shot. All right, let's take a look at doing this together. So I'm going to hit Shift D here to duplicate all of those. Then G and then X, and I'm going to move that over. Then Shift R a couple times like that. Now when I hit spacebar, you can see that one goes through there. Now for this guy, I'm going to select him and I'm going to hit Shift D, hit G, and then X. Now just as a reminder, the way I'm getting the X is I'm just looking at this axis here. I'm going to hit S to scale that up. And then I'm going to make this one a little bit slower. And each one of these keyframes, this timeline pertains to each one. See how it updates depending on each one? So let's move it over here a little bit. And then I'm going to hit Shift D. Just move this one here, scale that one down. And I'll make this one even slower. So maybe it takes 60. And if you click on the top one here, you can you don't even have to highlight it. You can just hold shift and select these 2 top ones. So now when I hit spacebar, you can see, boom, we've got 3 different guys going on. So something like that. It's not as exciting though, which is kind of, let's move this in maybe a little bit to 40. So just kind of cool. Just practicing animating, uh, hitting spacebar here. All right, let's talk a little bit about collision shapes. So I'm going to hit Shift A here. I'm going to go to Mesh, and I'm going to add the Susan monkey head, right? I'm going to go ahead and hit G here, move it up here. I'm going to hit S to scale it up. And I'm going to go to my Physics tab here, and I'm going to add a rigid body, and I'm going to make it active. So now when I hit spacebar, you can see that monkey head falls down, okay? Now you'll notice that under collisions here, there's a shape. So let's go back to 0 here. So I'm just going to click this button. That should snap us back to the beginning. And you can see that the shape here, it says convex hull, mesh, all this other stuff. So if I click box here, you can see it created a box collider on it. So I'm going to hit spacebar, and you'll see it falls flat on the bottom of that box collider. And so let's go ahead and hit this again. And I believe it's down arrow is the shortcut. So if we're here and you push the down arrow, I think it snaps back. So down arrow on your keyboard. I like to use convex hull or mesh, and now you can see what it does is when I hit spacebar, it actually falls like it's got the mesh on there. Convex hull is pretty nice as well because that kind of gives a much simpler, more optimized version of the monkey head as it falls. So you can see here, it's more of like a flat surfaced one, so it's not as much as the mesh. Now with a mesh, the reason I like to use it is it gives me very accurate every face, but you also need a high polygon mesh down at the bottom here with lots of cuts so that it doesn't cut through the floor. But to save you space, if you have lots of small objects and you don't really care about the thing behind it, if you make it a sphere or a box, like so here's a sphere, we hit spacebar, you're going to see it's going to roll like a sphere. Well, we have to add more force or more mass and stuff for it to do that. It actually will save on computation power by using using a collision shape that is less that has less sides. So a sphere has less sides, a box has less sides than that, and then the mesh and the sort of has the highest number. Right, let's talk a little bit about how scale affects it. You can see here that my scale is 3.7. What I want to do is I want to say that the scale of this object actually isn't 3 times the size it's supposed to be. So if I hit, for example, Control here, and it says Apply All Transforms, you can see this zeroed it out, and these are all now 1s. Now, I can also, let's see, hit, Object, Review, let's see. Control A. This is our visual transform here. And what I want to do is visual geometry or visual transform here. And that selects our visual transform. You can see this is our cursor. And then see, oh, it shifted it out of the way. Let me undo that. I think it's Shift S. Yeah, Shift S. And this is what's going to set our pivot point back to the center of our object. So we can select cursor to selected, which is here. And actually, what it is you right click and you go to set origin to geometry. There we go. And then it'll set the origin here, not the pivot. Sorry about that. So anyway, let's move this back up here. And what'll happen is I want to show you something. So if we go inside of here and we change our, let's say to a sphere here, right? And I'm going to move it over to the side and I hit spacebar here. And if it hits here, it should now roll. Whoa. Let's try that one more time. Let's scale that down. Position it here. Because it takes into account, that's why it's acting so weird, that scale size. So this time I'm just going to hit Control A and I'm going to apply the scale. So that should zero out the scale. Now when I hit spacebar, there we go. You can see now it's rolling and it's acting like a sphere. But the problem is if you don't reset those positions, so for example, if I hit S and X here, and now when I hit spacebar, you can see it's acting very strange. It's not even taking into account that because the scale is off. So you always have to hit Control A and reset the scale. If you hit Control A here and you do all transforms, it might mess it up a little bit. See how it set that pivot? So you got to right click again, and then you have to set origin to geometry. And now when you hit spacebar, let's make sure that this time we reset the pivot. So Control A, scale. Our pivot's there. Now when I hit Control, let me move it. Control A, scale. There we go. Move this up a little bit, and now it shouldn't explode. So now you can see it should. Let me scale the whole thing down too. He's kind of big. So Control A, and then all transforms. 1, 1, 1. Oops, not all transforms, but Control A, scale. There we go. Now I press spacebar. It should work. Yeah. And these might not have proper. Let's see. Maybe we have to reset the position too. Let's try that. So Control location. No, that would bring the pivot point down there. Yeah, I think that's right. Scale. And then that kind of lock in. Oh, you know why? It's keying it. See the key there? That's not what we want. We don't want it to key. So let's turn this off. And I think that's why I'm getting all these explosions and weird stuff going on. Now when I hit spacebar, it should register. Yeah, there you go. See how it's registering the hit? It's because I had a keyframe going on. So you always have to reset that transform. Sorry about that confusion. See that? So you always have to, if the scale is weird. So I'm going to Control Z a bunch so that my monkey goes back to the normal size. And then I'm going to change it back to convex hull. Hit Control A, all transforms, right click, set origin to geometry. So my pivot point is there. Hit spacebar, it should act normally. Yeah, there we go. All right, so let me cover one more thing before we move on. And try to delete the keys on here. That way it doesn't keep snapping back. Come on. And let me actually, come on, let me move. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to make a cube. So Shift A, mesh cube, and I'm going to position it down here. And just want to make sure that it is in essentially the same position as this monkey head. Now say I want this head, this monkey head, the Susan head to fall inside of this cube. Let's make 3 of these guys. So I'm going to hit S. And I'm just going to zoom in on this. Just want to make sure that they fit. I could probably just actually scale up this cube too. Shift D, Shift D. Okay, so there's our 3 cubes sitting above it. And all of these have the dynamic, and then we'll make this guy rigid body passive. So notice that this says convex hull here. So I'm going to go to tab. I'm going to go to edit mode. Select that top face by pressing 3 or clicking here. Press X on my keyboard and I'll just delete that face. Now, because this has convex hull on it, watch, it's not going to fall inside of there. You can see they just sit on the top, right? So what you want to do in instances like this, tab, go to object mode, select this, change it to mesh. And now when we press space, you can see they fell inside the hole. So they're in there. Okay, what I'm going to do is go back to 0, hit S to scale, and then Z, scale it down, bring it down here. So it's sitting right above the ground plane. Bring these guys down a little bit. Just kind of select my camera here, lock it, zoom out a little bit. And let's select our camera and see what's going on here with our field of view. Here, select our camera. There we go. And then I'm just going to take my field of view way out so that we can kind of catch it all. I'm going to hit spacebar here. You can see those fall in the box. Now for your assignment, what you're going to do is, let's see if we can, we've got all these in the collection. I'm going to right click outside of this collection here and make a new collection. Double click that, call it lights. Go to this last tab here, select this light, hit R. I'm going to delete this light here and hit Shift A. Go to light and do a sunlight, same as before. Just kind of hit Shift R to rotate that. Oops, not Shift R, sorry, just R. And then on the X axis, just click X, rotate it this way. Shift D, R, X, rotate it up, just straight up. Turn off shadows, take this intensity down, or the strength rather. You kind of have to like left click over here. Give it a tint of like maybe a pink or something. And then go to our copy machine here. And you could do cycles. That's kind of a new thing, but let's see. You could leave it as EV here. Shift F11 just to see how it looks, right? Or is it F11? Oh, just F12, sorry. That's how your render is going to look, which is fine by me for now because we haven't got into materials. Let's go to layout here. I'm going to change back to 3D viewport. And then for our copy machine here, same thing as before. I'm going to navigate to my videos folder and Blender VFX. And then this is 03 animating physics. Accept. And we want to go 250 frames here. And we want to make sure that we are not PNG. We are doing a video. And I'm going to hit Control F12. And I'm going to pause the video and then we'll watch it after. Actually, notice how it froze here? The reason for this is I'm going to hit escape and just close this out is because I didn't actually let it render all the way to 250 frames. So I have to hit spacebar here, let the whole video play all the way to, I guess we'll do 100 and we'll do 200. So let's change this to 200. Now I'll hit Control F12 and it should start from the beginning and let it render out. It's going pretty quick. I have a pretty fast computer. All right, so let's click here. I'm going to grab this link here, just paste this up here in my home screen, and let's watch it. 03 Animating Physics. I think that was my original one. Let's see. I think it's this one. I have like 2 copies. Yeah, there we go. All right, let's watch it again. Boom. We're becoming VFX artists, my friends. All right, this one I'm going to delete. I'm going to grab this. Sorry, my mouse is very sensitive. Okay, let's copy this. And I'm going to hit Control S and save this. So Control S. in that same folder, 03 Animating Physics, get rid of that end stuff, and then save my Blender file. And that is it. I hope you enjoyed that lesson, and we will continue on with like animating characters and rigid